If I could choose the life I please, then I would be a boatman. On the canals and the rivers free, no hasty words are spoken. My only law is the river breeze that takes me to the open seas. If I could choose the life I please, then I would be a boatman.
Hello, and welcome to Grief on a Tuesday Night, number 16. So today is 1 year since life changed. It's unbelievable, really, to think it's a year. And I was thinking to myself this morning while I was walking the dog about, what we've done and what we've been through, and sort of what advice, if I could go back and give me a year ago some advice, what it would be. It's very difficult, but I suppose the biggest thing would be to try and stay calm in the face of an absolute onslaught of emails and people, companies. Excuse me. Those first cold's nearly gone, by the way. It's getting better. Those first 2 or 3 months were absolute hell, because you're dealing with sudden grief, but you're also dealing with excuse me, some endless and difficult companies, mainly via emails, some on the phone, some letters. Obviously, letters start to come through, and they are relentless. I would have said at the time that it was this sort of fake sympathy every time. Oh, we're so sorry to hear of your news, or please accept this and that. And they don't care. They don't care in the slightest. And it was an incredibly difficult time, when there were difficult things that needed to be tied up and sorted out. And there were some difficult things to sort out amongst everything else that you're doing. And quite often these people didn't seem to understand, and they, as I say, they didn't care. So I think, the advice I give to myself going back is that whilst it's going to be incredibly difficult, and I know that I handled it completely the opposite, I would say to stay calm. There is a way through it. Although it won't seem like it, there is a way through it. And you will, excuse the coughing, typical. You will find a way through, but it won't seem like it at the time. And I think, if someone had said to me a few weeks, maybe a couple of months in, don't worry, you're going to get through it, it'll all be all right, be okay, I wouldn't have accepted that at all. There's no way I'd have accepted that. There was too much shit going on, and really heavy shit as well, and really difficult stuff. And the odd meltdown you'd have when you just think, you know what, I can't do it. I can't cope with this anymore. So yeah, that would be my advice, I suppose, to stay calm, even though it's really difficult, and even though I didn't do that. Stay calm, stay focused, one job at a time. Don't maybe try and do 2 or 3 things. Just get one thing done and out the way, and move on to the next. It's staggering to think it's a year. In that year, I've sort of completely turned around the house, done so much, almost everything I wanted to do. I've done. Bar smaller details, I've done it. I've been to therapy. I mean, God, I thought about going to therapy for years before this happened, for different reasons. But was lucky to have 7 weeks with good people and good people leading the sessions. And I'll always be very grateful. Like I say, I remember a couple of times thinking, like, I'm going to come across as a real dickhead here. It might have been things, you know, especially the one way, you know, we had to bring something in. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I couldn't do it. I think it was like a photo or picture or something along those lines, but I couldn't do it. And I thought I'd come across as an absolute dick. I remember going last, whatever it was at the time. I remember having to go last and thinking, God, this is like, I would have been better off going first and getting this out of the way. But I was sat there not really knowing how I was going to approach it and what I was going to say. And I think if I remember right, I remember saying at the time that I genuinely thought of just ringing in and saying, I'm not well, I'm not coming in. And then just felt that, you know, these sessions were quite precious in that they weren't going to go on forever. You know, you were going to get 7 and that was it. So it would have been a waste. But if you've ever heard of the character Bob Fleming from the Fast Show, that's me now. If you don't know who Bob Fleming is, look up Bob Fleming Fast Show and you'll find a stack of videos on YouTube. And basically, that's me right now. It would need someone just to go, hello there. And that's me, Bob Fleming. But you just have to put up with it. I said this was going to be raw and edited and unvarnished, and that's how it is. But yeah. And I just remember at the end of that session, that the response and the understanding was off the scale. And I came back and said to my lad when I got home that I'm absolutely staggered. You know, I thought people would have turned their nose up a bit or not, maybe just not said anything or, but the level of support and real understanding. And I think that was the thing, that we were all in situations where we all had grief for different reasons. Some of it was sudden, some of it was more long term. But everybody understood. And I just remember feeling almost, I don't know if elated is the right word, but just the boost, the boost that gave me to come home and think, wow, you know, there I was worried about going in and how I was going to be received, and just to get that level of understanding. And yeah, it was staggering. I still think about that now, and I'm very, very lucky. Very lucky that it turned out like that. So yeah, that's something I definitely miss, and I'd love to do again, but I know we can't. And we've done a bit of travel. We've been lucky over the last few years with the football to be able to travel to a number of places. I was only working out the other day. We'd had 17 flights and 2 Eurostars amongst the travels over the last few years. You know, and since that happened, we went to Germany in December to Leipzig, via Berlin. We went to Paris. Obviously, where we didn't get the tickets for the Paris Saint-Germain game, that still stings. We went to Germany again in the summer to Rostock via Hamburg. That was a really good trip. And yeah, just been to Holland again, to Amsterdam and Rotterdam. So, you know, been away a few times, and obviously been going to football regularly and gigs, and we've got a couple more in November, and then yeah, big one in December with Sabaton. We're going to see them in Nottingham, And then a few days later, we went over to Copenhagen. So first sort of proper big gig abroad. We have seen a gig abroad because my lad's first one was seeing Chevy Metal, which was Taylor Hawkins' side project from the Foo Fighters, and saw him with 100 people in Moore Park, California. Great story about just meeting a lady who was working for, well, not working, volunteering for the Love Hope Strength Foundation that Mike Peters founded, doing a bike ride from Route 66 all the way down to the Santa Monica Pier. And quite by chance, just got talking to her on Facebook, of all things, a few weeks before we went out to California on holiday for 10 days. And she sort of jokingly said, "Oh, you should come to the gig." And that's sort of how it started. And I sort of found out what she was doing. And and yeah, we were very lucky in that where we were staying in Northridge, it was just a 25-minute motorway drive up to Moore Park. So we said, yeah, we'll definitely go. And God, Lydia gave us free tickets, even though it was like a charity event. So we just bought stacks of merch, to make up for not. She literally wouldn't accept money. I think she was so chuffed to have a few English colleagues over there, English friends. It was great. But yeah, and to be sat 5 yards away from the late great Taylor Hawkins while he drummed away for Chevy Metal was really special. And my lad got a drumstick afterwards, got it signed as well. I remember there was a little kid had gone to the stage and got two straight away, and my lad was just behind him, and he handed one over, which he didn't have to do. Always remember that. And he went out and got it signed by Taylor. And it was a really special night. Probably the best night of the holiday. I'd been shooting shotguns in the morning at a massive shooting gun range, so it had been a pretty special day. And yeah, that all happened by chance. But that was his, and obviously it was still a gig. It was 100 people and a band playing and everything else. So, but yeah, this will be the first sort of big arena type foreign gig. And obviously we've got the Iron Maiden one booked next year as well for Lisbon, so that'll be another one. But so yeah, there's been, amongst everything else, and you've got to, I suppose, that advice about staying calm is one thing, but you've sort of, if it's possible, you've got to keep moving forward as well, without not. I think we talked about this in the therapy. It wasn't moving on. You weren't just leaving stuff behind and parking it, but you have got to keep moving forward somehow. And it's another thing that, of course, it's not straightforward. It's not easy. And of course, there are days when you think you can't, and things go wrong, but you have to do it. You just have to. I even thought this morning when I got up, I knew this day was coming. Initially, I think when I woke up in the morning, I'd forgotten. And then I realised that I'd left the fridge door open overnight. I'd left the computer on. I'm a stickler for turning electrical items off at the socket, making sure the plug's off. So even if the item's off, the plug's not, the switch isn't still on, I'm a bit of a stickler for that. But I'd left the computer on. So I've been on for ages. Fridge door was slightly open, so I was sort of just about to take some bread out, and I thought that's a bit cold. And of course, it was all coming out of the gap where it hadn't been shut properly. And I thought, you know what, I can feel it. Today's just going to be shit. We hadn't even, got the standard call from the mother-in-law. I thought that would have happened by now, to be honest. She tried to call when we were on the way to the airport the other week, going to Holland, and we just didn't have time to try and deal with that then. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's a difficult time, but a few messages today, which I massively appreciate. One in particular, and just very very lucky sometimes to stumble upon people in life you can call friends, and even people who you might not have met yet, but who just give you the best boost you can imagine. It's better than drugs or drinking or whatever it really is. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful for it. It was certainly something we look back at the time, and you look back down your WhatsApp list and see the amount of people who hadn't been in touch with you and for months and months. And but again, you've sort of got to move on. You have to move on from that, of course you do. So yeah, it's a really difficult one. You can offer people advice. If someone was in the same position now, maybe a week in or a month in or whatever else, I could offer advice, but it's so difficult. They might turn around and say that's not possible, or it's not true. I can't do that. It's not like that. Everyone's situation is going to be different. All you can do is, as far as I'm concerned, all you can do is be there for people. And if they want a shoulder to cry on, you're there. If they want you to come round and rant or talk, you're there. If they need your help, you're there. That's how it would be. That's how it would be for me anyway. So there we are. We're 1 year on. I never thought I'd be sat here doing these. Having people from across the world somehow listening, because I don't promote this in the slightest. I don't put it out on any social media or whatever. I know when I finished, when I do the final edit and upload it, it goes automatically to obviously all the podcast sites and YouTube and what have you, but it's not promoted in any way. So I'm amazed anybody hears it, but they do. Yeah, it's a difficult one, difficult day. And I think I'm going to leave it there. This has been the first one which has been sort of solely dedicated, I guess, to the original sort of concept, I suppose. There's no football coming up for a little bit. Got an away match this weekend at Spurs. Won't be going to that, so it's going to be over a week until the next home game. And November's quite busy with sort of football and a couple of gigs, and yeah, it'll soon fly by. But anyway, yeah, so there we are, 1 year on. Here I am sitting doing a podcast. That's something else that if someone had said a few weeks in or whatever, you said, oh, do you know what, you can do a podcast or something, I would have laughed. I said absolutely no chance. But yeah, there we go. Here's me being calm, being focused, doing podcasts, keeping busy, and on we go. I'd love to, as I've said before, if anybody else did podcasts on grief and wanted me as a guest or to talk, I'd do it. Or if anybody had messages or we're in a similar situation or needed help, I'd absolutely do that too. I really would. It can only be a thing for good in my book. So there we go. And yeah, before we go, look up Bob Fleming in the Fast Show. Again, if you don't know who he is, you'd soon realise when you saw him that that's probably been me for the last last 20 minutes. But Bob's one of my favourite characters. I love the Fast Show, absolutely love it. I love so many of their characters, and still quote a lot of them today. But yeah, Bob's one of the best. Anyway, take care. Speak to everyone soon.